Alrighty, y'all. Welcome back to another edition of the Track Tribe Live. We are going to be digging in with our resident expert here. I'm going to call it the guru of half the guru of track and field and the voice of track and field, right? David Mitchell, who's going to be talking about what it's like to coach across generations. So I hope that you are excited as I am. I'm really excited to learn and hear. I'm really like kind of what do you call it? Like really wanting to dig into some of your stories too, right? So be
Okay.
prepared for that. And if you have questions, as always, please by all means throw them in the live chat here. We'll get to them as soon as we can. And if you are joining us from Twitter, give us a holler. If you're joining us from the Track Tribe on the school app, give us a holler. And if you don't know what the Track Tribe is, go ahead and search that on the school app. That's SKOOL.com. Look up the Track Tribe. It's a community of people who just love track and field, coaches, parents, athletes, and the such. And even fans can join us. And then we talk track and field, not just the noise that's out there, but the real nitty gritty stuff that gets results. So that's what the Track Tribe is all about. And don't forget, you can join us at any time. It's 100% free. It will always be 100% free. And that's the way I built it, and that's the way I like it, because I don't think information should ever have a paywall. So, with that being said, again, thank you for joining us. David, what's up, my man? How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thank you for getting this all together. Thank you for starting the Trek Tribe. It's I think meeting a need, and I look forward to seeing it really grow in the coming months and hopefully years as well.
I appreciate that. Kind words. I'll pay you later. No, we appreciate that.
100% free, just like the Trek Tribe.
All right. So, hey, why don't you tell us, the audience who may not know who you are, a little bit about yourself and what it is about you that's kind of totally awesome when it comes to track and field.
Well, totally awesome. I don't know, but the fact that I've been around for a long while, doing a lot of things, has been the best part for me. I owe a lot to track and field. I started out almost 50 years ago when I was a 12-year-old seventh grader,
Wow.
coming off of finishing a 10-year-old baseball season where at the end of a long practice, my coaches had a race to see who was the slowest on the team, and I lost or won, depending on how you go. And the guy that beat me in that race was playing catcher the entire practice, so they even made sure to point that out to me. But
Hmm.
by seventh grade, I was doing some things okay on the track team, and by eighth grade, I was a team captain and was on a school record setting relay, and things really changed for me. And I tried to never lose sight of that. As I've gone through, I got into coaching young. I was still in college when I started out as a middle school assistant, and then I got a high school head coaching job,
Mhm.
also still in college, and then came and was able to land a student teaching position at that same school.
Mm.
So that's just been a path for me into so many things, and that led me later on, and maybe we can explore the hows and wherefores of all that about into becoming an announcer. Now I'm at about 26 years, I guess, so almost 27 years into being an announcer, and gotten to go wonderful places, meet the most incredible people, and get some of the best seats in the house for great track and field meets, which you can't beat, right? Um, so that's something that I absolutely love to do still. And I'm getting now to do some things with Charles Coach O. Oliver, CoachO.com. If you're not familiar with it, you can look and see affiliated with over 100 meets a year. And we're putting on a youth series right now in North Carolina and South Carolina. Just had the Clemson High School Invitational
Mhm.
yesterday. And then we'll be back at Tryon International with the brand new Mondo Oval there for the next couple of weekends and then back and forth a little bit as we go. So a lot of neat things I'm getting to do with Coach O that I haven't gotten to do, including recruiting for the Gill 1918 Project Youth Series powered by Coach O podcast. I'm getting to interact with a lot of neat people doing that, and um, I love it. It's also 100% free. We try to do some promotion for the people who decide to speak because they're offering great content to youth coaches, parents, and athletes. And in turn, we try to publicize whatever they've got going on, a book or a cause or a camp or a clinic. We try to get people give something back to them that way, and that's really where my heart is for everything in the sport. So I'm enjoying that tremendously.
Awesome. Well, that's an amazing intro. I appreciate that. And I'm sure people are going to be like, okay, wait, where are we at now? And I know a lot of people are very familiar with Coach L. As a matter of fact, I think I just registered one of our kids through Coach L. We've got the Birmingham meet coming up on the 25th, and he'll be running the 400 and 800 this week, that week. So very familiar with it as well. It's a former youth, very, very youth. I used to train the 4 to 14-year-olds, and I'm at the high school level. So extremely familiar with Coach O. You guys do a great job getting that stuff out there and making sure that people can see the entire list up there. And I appreciate that as a planner. So you've been in the sport for nearly 50 years, right? And I think that's just kind of just awesome in itself, right? Because people, you either stick around or you don't. Let's think. So when you look back over some of the things that you believe when you first started earlier in your career, um, what do you think you would have changed, or what changed, and what refined over that time period, where through your experiences or through your lens?
Well, I would say one thing that changed in me as the years went by and my perspective on things is, I think when I was a young coach, and I think this is probably true for a lot of young coaches, there's a great drive to prove yourself. You
Mm,
want to be accepted by the older coaches. You want to be recognized. You want to compete. And all those things are good and should be a part of a coach's makeup, I think. But sometimes, for me, as a really young, first starting out coach, it was a little bit more about me than it should have been in my own
mm,
mind. And I really think that as the years have gone on, for my perspective, it really became clear that it's really all about the athletes. It's really all about
right.
helping the families. It's all about getting to do cool things like this where you can help support the sport. Um, I recorded an episode for the Gill 1918 Youth Series podcast that's going to be on tomorrow morning, in fact.
Cool.
That is, it's called The Joy of Being Simple-Minded. And it's about helping young coaches simplify things for beginning athletes. Um, so just trying to make a little pun with the title of it, but so those things for me, it's all about. There's still probably a little bit about me, otherwise I wouldn't care to do it, but it's really about helping the other people. So what changed the circumstances around the sport, the circumstances around kids' lives, around our society, is certainly very different than when I first got my first coaching job in 1984.
Mm,
Um, but people are essentially the same. And it is a people-oriented profession being a coach.
right.
And people need love, people need support, people need a nudge in the right direction, people need clear communication, people need to know that they can trust you. And
Mm,
those things have not changed, did not change. When I coached other sports, those things did not change. Along the way, that's sort of a constant, and that would be something that I would encourage anybody who's early in their coaching career to focus on and remember is that relationship part and being trustworthy and communicating clearly goes a really long way to
mhm.
overall success for you and the athletes you coach.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's crazy as you kind of answered my next question, which is kind of cool. It's like, what are those things those fundamentals that you think should stay or must stay, right? Because I actually posted earlier that there's a lot of noise out there, and it comes all these theories and all this science and all this data, and it's great, right? It does give us more information, but more information doesn't always result in the outcome that we're looking for, especially when you're new. And people go, they get so overwhelmed with all these things that are happening and all the theories, right? Raise the ceiling versus, raise the floor, or, that whole conversation. It's a debate in itself, right? And I think that there's a balance between both of them. So with that, if you've got challenges out there with all the noise, what are some of those principles that definitely stand outside of what you just mentioned, which I think are really, really important? What are some of those principles that you think have to stick around generation to generation, outside of the relationship connection pieces?
Well, I think one of the things for me was just developing a basic understanding of biomechanics.
Mm,
Not going too deep. It was Tom Ecker, I believe. I don't even know if the book's still in publication, but I think it was called Basic Track and Field Biomechanics. And for me, getting that under my belt about the second or third year that I was coaching really helped open my eyes and see things in a different perspective and understand how things worked. And I mentioned that I've coached a bunch of other sports too along the way, and it helped me there too. I think a good track coach can probably coach just about anything once they learn the nuances of that sport, because
hmm
a good track coach is going to know enough about the basic biomechanics and movement patterns and things like that. And those things need to be the basics. Those things need to be the foundation, I think, more so than the noise that you're talking about, because whew, there's a lot, and it's awesome, and you can't know it all. And if you know it all, and that's what my joy of being simple-minded is about tomorrow morning when that comes out on the podcast, if you can't communicate it all, it's worthless.
Right.
Right? I mean, you can study all you want, you can dig in, you can go deep, and if you haven't figured out a way to present that to your athletes and to other coaches that work with you in a way that you can replicate and they can understand and use, what good is it?
hmm
So, basics, real basic stuff, and communicating that clearly are really important as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I love it. The if you cannot communicate that, right, what do you know? And I have a saying, right? If you don't know how to say what you know, you do not know what you think you know, right?
I love it. It's great.
Right. So I mean, we have technology now, and there's all kind of obviously AI. There's all kind of access to information, and to relay that information in a simple way has seemingly tied up a lot of coaches, right? So, what is it that you think would help maybe even newer coaches to be able to teach athletes in a simplistic way based on maybe your own experience?
Well, being able to break it down and knowing exactly the core of what you want, and then I kind of alluded to it, having it in such a way that you can work with your other coaches. Most of my career, I was a high school head coach, so I had assistants, some paid, some people who were alum of the program, and that was great because they had a pretty good idea of how we did things and why we did things. So it was easier. But being able to communicate with the adults that are working with you and then the leaders on your team
Mm,
in such a way that then they are able to share that. Because me, I can only be with so many people and explain something so many times. But if I've
mm,
got multiple people doing it and the athletes then start talking to each other to do it, then I've found some success because that message, whatever it happens to be, is getting spread throughout the team and then throughout a program. And I think that's the other thing that maybe might be straying from your question, but just keeping in mind that you're there for a program. Hopefully, you're there for a long term. You're trying to build into something, and I always kind of believe that the season kind of belonged to the seniors and the athletes, but the program belonged to me. It was my
mm,
responsibility to make sure that the program was moving forward, but I really wanted ownership from my athletes for what happened that season, because that was their experience, that was their time that they were going to look back on. So we had to be able to balance that and work with it. So little things that you can teach about how you want things done. Like I was very particular about warm-ups. Warm-ups needed to be done well, otherwise you're just wasting your time. In fact, you're probably worse than wasting your time because you're programming your muscle memory and your brain to do something the wrong way.
Right.
If you're doing a drill, do it well or don't do it.
Yeah.
Um, and those things come into play. And then when you hear kids talking to each other about that, it's like, no, you really need to do it this way because you're not helping yourself. It's not going to help you in your event. And then you know you're onto something.
Comments after my own heart. And I honestly just had this conversation with our team last week. I said, you guys think that the warm up is preparation for the workout. And I said, that's not right. That's incorrect. The warm up is your first rep of the workout. And it
It's a really
dictates
good put.
how that thing is going to go. And so you should have seen the look on their face. They were puzzled at first. They go, nobody's ever said that to us. But now I can tell you, after I made that comment, after I made that statement, the kids did a 180 when it came to warm up. 100% serious about it now because they want their workouts to go well. So how do you communicate your vision? Because I love what you said there, that it's the athlete's season, but it's my program because I have to move it forward, right? So this is temporary ownership on your side, but I am accountable for the sustainability of this. So how do you communicate that to the leaders on your team and the support staff, who are the other leaders on your team, so that that vision stays through and through?
Well, I think having some very open conversations, doing some listening to hear what it is what do you want to get out of this, athletes? What are you hoping to do? Sometimes you might be very surprised to hear that they're only there because there's a girl on the team that they're interested in, or a guy on the team that they're interested in, and they wanted to be around, or their parents made them. And other people are like, I want to win a state championship.
Mm,
I want to go to nationals. I want to be all American. I want that record. I want my name on that record board in the gym for as long as I can possibly have it there, for as many events as I can have it for. So you get all of those kinds of answers from the athletes, but I think it's about creating the culture. And what we talked about was a tradition of excellence. I had it on documents, I had it on shirts, I had it in a lot of different places. It was at Pirate men's track and field. We were the Pinckney High School Pirates, and I called them men uh, because I wanted them to act more like men, not like little boys.
mm,
And they liked that. They thought that was pretty cool. And then we had a tradition of excellence. And so when somebody would start to stray from things like that, one of the most powerful phrases is simply, "We don't do things that way. This
mhm,
is what we do." And it's not condemning, and it's not anything other than, no, that doesn't fit. That's not our culture. That's not our tradition. And culture really then was not a word that was used a lot. And, it was more about traditions and atmosphere and stuff. Culture's more of a recent phenomenon in terms of being thrown around about building a team culture. Um, but that kind of stuff, and then again, when you get the buy-in from your athletes and they say those things to each other, we had a way that we did things, and doing those things in the right way is what mattered. You may win, you may lose, you may make mistakes, but you need to try to do things in the right way. One of those simple little things is we left every area we came to as clean or cleaner than
right.
when we arrived. And they bought into it. Captains checked it. I didn't check it anymore. I was usually busy at the end of the meet, getting results, talking to coaches, doing something, and and then there was responsibility from the other athletes, and that's just part of setting some standards for yourself, and
Mm,
holding high standards, and trying to move forward from there.
man. Did you drop us some nuggets, man? I hope some coaches are listening to this one because we've got a lot of young coaches that are asking, well, I'm brand new. I don't know what to do. How do we set this thing up? What do I say? What do I do? And they're reading and reading and researching all these things. And honestly, we try to tell them, hey, listen, be authentic and represent who you are because that's what the kids are going to see and that's what the kids are going to do. They're going to listen to every single thing that you do. And I'm going to say that
Mhm.
again. Kids listen to every single thing that you do. They don't listen to a word you say. They listen to everything you do. And if you've got teenagers, you know I'm telling the truth, right? So they don't listen at all, very, very much, very little anyway. Or they watch everything you do and they listen to that thing. And so the young coaches out here are asking so many questions. What do we do? How do we establish this quote unquote culture? How do we set our standards, right? And what bit of advice could you give them? You said some nuggets already. What bit of advice could you give maybe the newer coaches or the less experienced or those who are experienced but are still struggling to find their way within their own team dynamics? What confidence or what, excuse me, not confidence, but what advice would you give them going forward to build a better program around their ideas and standards?
Well, I think one thing is you can't hit a target if you don't know what it is.
Hmm.
So it's pretty important that you get with people you trust and kind of go over that and make sure that what is it that you really want? What
Yeah.
is it you're trying to do? Um, how do you can't set that vision uh, if you can't share it and define it. So know where you want to go as a program, know what you want to do season by season. And what that really boils down to, and the things that we've already been talking about, is the little things on a daily basis is
Mhm.
what adds up to the big things.
Right.
And it's what adds up to the the great memories of being part of a team that the athletes that you coach are going to have or not going to have, because they're going to feel safe and they're going to feel trusted and they're going to feel important when you have those boundaries up for them. Teenagers need those boundaries. They're going to tend to bounce all over the place, and the boundaries are guardrails just to keep them in, and keep them in the right path,
Yeah.
not necessarily to suppress them in any way. But you're totally right about that your actions speak very loudly.
Yes.
So you need to make sure that your actions are consistent with what you say that you want, because whether you know it or not, whether they say it to you, they're going to call you on it. Anytime that kids are incredible at picking up on hypocrisy
Yeah.
and knowing when you're not really living the way you're talking, and that's going to happen sometimes, and being open enough to say, hey, I'm sorry, I was wrong about that. Let's
Mm.
move forward in a positive way. But that's gonna earn you some respect with a
Yeah.
lot of people to be able to do that, and then take them along and move forward in a positive way. But one of the things you're talking about, it reminded me of a friend who at the time was a youth pastor, and he said, high school kids like you if they think you're cool. Middle school kids like you if you think they're cool.
Hmm.
Uh, so it's kind of fun to keep in mind, that they're coming in from, we have bad days, we have good days. They're coming in from all sorts of stuff.
Right.
Um, you want to make sure that they know that you like them, that you
Right.
care about them, that you want them there. Um, Joe Newton from Illinois was a legendary cross country and track coach, one of the first high school coaches to be an Olympic coach, and I had the pleasure of seeing him speak at clinics and getting to know him a little bit later on when I was an announcer. And one of the things he did, he'd have a cross country team with 200 boys on
Wow.
it, and from York High School, Elmhurst, Illinois, and he would shake every kid's hand on the way into practice and learn their names and know them by name and shake their hands on the way out of practice. That's not practical for everybody, but Mr. Newton did that, and Mr. Newton coached for over 50 years at York High School and had incredible success with his athletes. And um, that's a small, or that's an extreme example, I guess, of a small thing that you can do.
Mm.
But somehow, I felt it was always important to call roll every day.
Hmm.
I wanted every kid's name mentioned at least once, uh, in a positive way, because a lot of times if you don't mention it and acknowledge them in some way, then probably the first thing that you say to them is, knock that off. Hey, stop, get over here. And it's not so positive, right? So
Right.
I took attendance. I called roll every day. Um, and I had teams in the 80s, 80, 84, 85 kids on a team. Those were the bigger teams. Most of my teams averaged probably 60 to 70. So it took a little bit of time, but everybody got their name called, everybody got looked at, everybody made eye contact. And at the time, I didn't know how important that was. I was more interested in making sure that I didn't miss somebody skipping practice. My motivation was a little bit different, but when I look back at it, I think, wow, you know what? That actually accomplished some other things that I didn't even realize I was doing.
Yeah. That's funny because we took roll today, right? So yeah, I think we're on par. It's like, yay, we're in. So now I'm gonna transition just a little bit here because I think what you're saying is also indicative of the times as well, right? Because before people would take roll and now you can just kind of visually map out and have technology with you and all. People have iPads and they're just like checkbox, 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 right? So maybe it's not writing, but it's in digital, right? So what are some things that you've seen over the years that have changed dramatically from when you started and then kind of throughout the years that have progressed? And it's just like, wow, I can't believe we're here with X, Y, and Z, for example.
Well, the simply the performances are
Hmm.
off the charts. I mean, there were those rare moments when you heard about somebody from your state that maybe was doing something nationally significant, or you'd see them later going on and having great success in the NCAA level because you heard about it there a little bit more. The first year I was a varsity high school coach was the second year that the state of Michigan had the 4x800 meter relay.
Mm.
So I was not a particularly good athlete, so I had never been to a state meet. I'd never been as a spectator. I certainly didn't make it as an athlete. My first state meet was as a coach. So I was learning along with them, and we had qualified the 4x800 meter relay. Cool. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how it was going to go, but we ended up finishing fifth that year, and ran about, I think, 8:03, 8:04. 8:03, 8:04 doesn't even sniff a medal in just about any state anymore with a larger school.
Yeah.
You know, that's not even close. You wouldn't qualify if that's
Hmm.
what you were running. But that was the standard at that time,
Hmm.
right? And then that record, I know in Michigan, I know there have been teams that have run in state competition 744 and under,
Hmm.
and in national competition under 740 since then. And those things don't compare. Here I am happy that my athletes ecstatic that they just won medals at the state meet. It's the first state meet I've ever been to, um, and that time is light years behind what people are doing now. So that's one concrete example of what's out there that has changed is the performances. And one thing, I have the perspective of coaching pre-internet and then coaching post-internet or with the
Hmm.
internet. And DieStat at the beginning did more to change the sport than anything I've ever experienced. And John and Don and Di were wonderful people. And again, through announcing, I got to meet them and got to know them and enjoy their company. And they had a vision for doing things that they were just starting to do some things because they wanted recognition for their two kids.
Mm.
Uh, Natalie and Derek were people that their children that were competing and they weren't getting recognized and they didn't know how they compared, and so they just started it, and it's blossomed into this whole huge thing. And I would hang up record boards, I would hang up standards to qualify for state, I would hang up regional standards, like additional qualifier. You got to enter two into regional, but if you had such and such a time or jump or
Mhm.
whatever, then you could add more than two. Those were things I would hang up in the locker room because I wanted them to know how to define what good is.
Mm.
Uh, because they think because I beat Billy all the time and I'm the fastest kid in the seventh grade, and then I move on to high school, I'm still going to be the fastest kid around. They don't really know what good is.
Mhm.
And now with the internet, the definition of good has changed, and it's right there in your
Hmm.
face. No matter what, you can't escape it, even if you wanted to. And so I think that in itself just changed expectations. It changed expectations of athletes. It changed expectations of coaches. Um, I've been blessed to work with National Scholastic Athletics Foundation since 1999, and their meets, now currently called Nike Indoor Nationals, Nike Outdoor Nationals, are, they started in the early 90s, and they helped do that too. They really helped define what's good, and they brought people together from different states, and they crowned national champions, and they gave away rings, and that really started to change things too. It changed expectations, and when I first started coaching, I didn't even have the state meet on my schedule that I printed at the beginning of the year because I didn't quite understand it yet. It was on my mental radar, but it wasn't printed on my schedule. Uh, the latter part of my coaching, I had nationals on the schedule,
Mm.
right from the beginning of the year. Hey, we're going to have some people go to nationals. We're going to have it here. We're not going to plan our open house on that weekend for graduation because you might have three other people on the relay with you that need you to be there at nationals. So, we tried to get that out there 6 months in advance and make sure that everybody knew. So all those things, the internet, the dice stats and mouse splits of the world, and the championship meets that are out there really changed expectations in ways that people have just risen to it. Coaches have tried to learn more. Coaches have had access to more information, like we talked about, sometimes too much, but that has had a lot to do with it, I think, with the way the sport has accelerated. And I'm always amazed that we're still setting world records, and where does human potential end? We haven't found it yet.
No, no, I don't think we ever will. You look at the first guy to ever run sub 4, and not long after, but everybody said it couldn't be done. It's an impossible human body, and then you know he did it, and then what? 10 other people did it within that same month. Let's
Right.
say what?
Right. Yeah, that's the perfect example, right? I mean, that barrier is broken, and all of a sudden people rise up and do things that
Yeah,
were once thought to be impossible because now they know it's possible. So I
right.
think that's part of what coaches we have to do, right? We have to make sure they're aware uh, of what is actually possible for an athlete to do, and then help them make those steps to get
Right.
toward that.
And I think that's what a lot of coaching is, to your point. It's it's exposing them to something different than what they thought. And a lot of the kids go, well, I see myself this way, but you're telling me I can do this. And they don't believe you at first. And then you start to train them towards that other goal. And they go, wait a minute, I'm actually running faster. I'm jumping farther. I'm throwing further. And maybe this thing is possible, right? And so then they start to believe a little bit more and more. And then they buy in and they're like, you know what? I'm confident I can actually do this. And the key to coaching is showing them the potential, but also training them to the point where they can actually get it, based on that belief, right? And the work that they do.
Right. So
So,
I used to ask athletes sometimes, what comes first for you? What really has gotten you to hard work?
mm,
Or what comes first, the success first or the work? Because a lot of them, they didn't believe in themselves. And so it is our job as coaches to believe in our athletes, to
yeah,
set the vision for our athletes. But they didn't really believe in themselves until all of a sudden they got a performance, and then their perspective changed. But I would try to challenge the athletes to, and if you've been in a place long enough and they've had older brothers and sisters or whatever, they start believing you a little sooner
yeah,
because you've kind of got credibility with them. When you say, "Hey, this is what I know you can do," they start to believe it a little faster. But that changeover from, okay, going through the motions to, all right, I'm really going to dedicate myself to this. The sooner we can help the athlete get to that,
hmm,
the more success they're going to have.
absolutely. So you've been in this thing nearly 50 years, right? And hopefully That doesn't sound weird. That sounds awesome to me. Like anybody who's been around something that long, there's a passion and a love for it, right? How do you prevent yourself from burning out or losing the love, right? As some people say. How do you maintain that sustainability and longevity in such a sport like this, where you know it's very taxing sometimes from season to season?
It really is, and it's very hard. And right off the top of my head, I don't remember the name of the book, but Rick McGuire was a coach at the University of Missouri, and he wrote a book, and it had a really excellent chapter about coaching burnout and how you know when you're starting to see those signs of burnout. So being aware, being self-aware is very big.
Mm,
Some people may have a spouse, they may not have a spouse, they may just have a friend group around them or whatever it is, but having some kind of support. My wife has been a great support to me. My wife Carol and I have been married now just over 40 years. And yes, exactly. Thank God. He's the one. And she's been a great support all the way, even when things were difficult because I was putting a lot of hours into
mm,
it. Um, I think that self-awareness is huge, and I think we're all going to have those moments or even chunks of time when we're feeling burnout, and then getting some idea of how to pull through that and refocus is also pretty crucial. For me, um, anytime I was coaching in any sport really is when you make a mistake, when things aren't going well, how do you fix it? What do? You get back to basics.
mhm.
That was my coaching perspective when I was coaching my own daughters in volleyball, when I was coaching any other sport and track too. It's like something didn't go well. Okay, well let's go right back to the basics. Let's How are you sleeping? How are you eating? Are you getting enough to drink? What what kinds of things are you pouring into yourself to build yourself up? Are you getting any exercise yourself? Or are you just supervising all these other people doing all this great stuff?
Mm,
You go right back, reel it right back into the very basics to start rebuilding that foundation, finding the cracks if there are any, and then building everything back up again, I think is one way to be able to do that. For me, another thing has been, um, I've been blessed to not always have the same role in the sport. I've been able to go from being a high school coach to becoming an announcer and traveling the country and sometimes other parts of the world even, and um, having and now I'm doing this. I just retired after 39 years working in public schools last June.
mm,
um, and that's when I picked up with Coach O. um, and the last 23 of those were as a school counselor, so saw a lot more than I ever cared to, of how hard life is for people, and it really is. But being able to change roles a little bit is nice. Not everybody's always going to have that option, but finding a way to do things like that is very refreshing. I was actually pretty burnt out from education when I retired in Michigan in 2015. Um, as a high school counselor there, we had 1,400 students. We had an administration that really believed that counselors were not that necessary. They wanted to bring in other ways of doing things. And we had gotten down to two school counselors in the entire district, both at the high school.
well,
Um, so when I started working at the high school, we had about 1,600 students and four counselors. So about 400 people on a caseload, which is still a pretty big caseload.
mhm.
Still higher than the 250 that's recommended nationally. That doesn't happen all that often, but that's what the standard is, right? And so by the end, though, I had 700 on my caseload. And the second year of doing that, the other counselor had stress-related health issues and missed like the first month of school because she needed to take care of herself. So here I am doing all of the scheduling, all of the everything that school counselors do. for 1,400 kids.
Mm,
And and it was in a community where I had lived for 25 years. So everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people knew me. I'd go to the store and they'd be like, hey, you haven't fixed Kyle's schedule yet. What are you going to do about that? He really needs that class. And it'd be like, I couldn't escape it.
mm,
And I was getting like each day, I'd be getting about 100 emails and have 30 or 40 voicemails. So by the end of that year, I was toast. I
mhm,
really was. I was hanging on for dear life. I was, feeling it in my health. I was coming home having to just kind of lay down for a while and try to relax, and it was barely hanging on. So I thought at that time, like, had the opportunity. I wasn't really planning to retire. Wasn't sure what I was going to do, but they had a buyout because they were trying to get the people with the most experience with the higher salaries out and bring lower salaried people in to balance the budget. And that was great for me. So I took the buyout and sold athletic equipment for a year with my friend that makes the bullet belt. If you don't know the bullet belt, go to bulletbelt.com. It's a great
mhm.
product. I was using it before I met Craig Askins, the inventor of it, and before I ever got to work with him. And I still love it. I think it's one of the best things you can do for starts, especially. Anyway, I did that for a year, and then we moved to South Carolina. There's a long story about that I won't go into, not because it's more just about personal life than about coaching, but we moved. And I was sure that I was not going back into public education. I was going to do anything, trying to apply to colleges to do things in admissions or to be an assistant coach to do something. And I finally gave up one night and applied because we'd been down here for a while. I didn't have the job secured and applied on a Friday night for two jobs in what's now my hometown in Greenwood, South Carolina. Monday morning, phone rang twice, back to back. We want to interview you on Tuesday. They set up the interviews. Uh, it was an elementary school counselor position and a high school English teacher position. Well, I had been a high school English teacher. I'd never gotten the chance to work in an elementary school. So when I interviewed with the elementary school first, they said, if we offer you the job, will you cancel the other interview? And I'm like, yes, I will. I'll be happy to do that. And that was very refreshing. So the point of that story on our topic is about if you get a chance to do some things that refresh you a little bit,
Yeah.
to do something a little bit different, it's going to probably help you. Um, you don't have to give up everything that you're already doing, but to find some different ways to do some things can help you with that. But burnout's real. You need to develop support before you need it. You need to not have shame about going to see a therapist or a counselor or talking to a pastor or whoever it is for you in your life that would be of some support to you because it's a high burnout profession. Any profession that deals with people a lot, I
Mhm.
think, is a pretty high burnout profession. So,
Yeah,
and this is incredibly people intensive. So
absolutely. You gotta tell me. I think I'm burning a candle at both ends at this point because I do workforce development and leadership development. So I deal with people, and then on the other side, I coach young kids. So I've got two sets of kids. One have mortgages and one doesn't. So that's for
it's a good
real.
way.
Yeah. All right. So, as we kind of wrap up here, because we got a few minutes left here, what's your, and you've been around the world, right? And you've been traveling and doing all kind of cool things, announcing and seeing records broken live, right? In the announcers booth, which I think is really fun. You have to bring me in there one day. Uh, we'll do a
We'll
co-announcing.
find a way.
Let's go. What's your favorite track moment or track story that you remember?
Well, there are a lot. But I think one event that I got to announce, and I think it's partially because the story I told earlier about my first success as a coach was in the 4x800. But when Long Beach Poly broke the national record at nationals running 7:28, um, that moment of announcing really stuck in my mind. There was a Port Charlotte high school in Florida that also broke the old record and pushed them to that, and Polly ended up with the record. And that one really stood out. It was something that I knew was possible. And so there was a lot of pressure on the kids who were involved because, again, the internet and everybody's talking about, "Ooh, are we going to see a national record? Can they do it?" Coast to coast. We got Florida and California and,
Hmm.
all kinds of interesting stuff. So that's interesting. Definitely. Another one was Casey Combest, who still has the high school national record for 60 meters
Casey.
at 6:57. That was the first national record I ever saw. And that was in at the Nike Indoor Nationals, the very first one by that name in Columbus, Ohio in 1999. And that happened to be the first meet that I ever announced. And how I got there is an interesting story too. So since we're wrapping up, I'll try to keep it fairly short, but I was coaching. I uh, was trying to get my athletes in. I had a handful of athletes that could qualify. And I was on the phone with Mike Burns, who was one of the founders of the meet, trying to figure out because they ran 800, but state of Michigan at that time was only running 600, and little things like that. How's that going to get the
Hmm.
athlete placed? And we're talking, and just a week before that, my good friend who ran the indoor circuit at the University of Michigan for the state of Michigan, he was in organ procurement and got called away because whenever there might be an organ donation, that was part of his job to work with the family. So he's like, "Hey, I got these announcements to make. Can you take this microphone and just make a few announcements for me and make sure people are doing the right thing with their spikes and getting registered and all that stuff?" I'm like, "Sure, no problem. Uh, go see if you can save a life. That's a lot more important than staying here at this track meet, right?" Uh, and when he got back, he got stopped by two or three people because I was starting to have a little fun and I was calling some races. They'd never really done that before. I was doing more than just making the check your spikes announcement. Um, so anyway, he came back and he knew me. He was a good friend anyway. They said, we don't have anybody announcing anything for field events. Maybe we should start doing that at the indoor state meet coming up. So fast forward to the conversation again with Mike Burns on the phone, and he said, "Well, we might come up to Michigan because we're going to be in Columbus early. We might come up and watch the Michigan indoor state meet." I was just trying to be friendly. I said, "Well, if you do, I'm going to be announcing field events. So just find me. It'll be pretty obvious who I am in the infield, and I'll show you around, introduce you to some people in Michigan." And he's like, "You're going to be announcing field events? We need a field event announcer for our event. We've been talking about this for years. We've been wanting to devote somebody to do that." And he said, "Give me an email with a couple of references, and I'll get back with you." So I gave him an email with my friend that ran that circuit and Jeff Hollaba from Track and Field News that I'd known for quite a while. And he did check with Jeff Hollaba, but I never heard from him. So I'm like, okay, cool, that's whatever. I didn't have expectations. I was just getting started as an announcer. It wasn't that big of a deal um, to not have heard from him. But I'm there with my wife and our two youngest daughters and my group of athletes that I've got, and we're sitting in the stands on the second day of the meet. It was a Friday, Saturday meet. Friday passed, never heard from him. Stopped thinking about it. Saturday, though, sitting in the stands watching one of our athletes compete, and all of a sudden it's like, "Would David Mitchell, the announcer from Michigan, please come to the announcer stand?" And I walked over there and they said, "Okay, here's a shirt, here's a clipboard. You're going to share a microphone with that British guy over there." It's Ian Brooks from the Armory in New York, uh, who's
Oh,
who's been a good
stop.
friend now for 25 years now. Uh, you're gonna share a microphone with that British guy over there and get to work. You're a field event announcer. Go get changed. So I went, put the Nike shirt on, handed me the clipboard, started announcing, and like no kidding, about 15 minutes later, Jim Spear, the other meet founder, came over to me and said, "We've already talked it over. We like what you're doing. We want to invite you to our meet in Raleigh, North Carolina for the Outdoor Nationals." At that time, that was the Adidas Outdoor. Um,
Mhm.
and I'm like, I was coaching high school, and I was coaching on the Midwest Meet of Champions team for the state of Michigan. I was coaching the 400-meter runners and the 4x400 and recruiting the kids from around the state to go compete against other states. And that was that same weekend. But I went and talked to the head coach um, of Team Michigan, and I said, "You know what? Nobody's ever offered to fly me anywhere. at their expense. I don't know if I'll ever get this chance again. Uh, I think I really want to take it, and I worked out a way where one of my former athletes who ended up being a Division III national champion in the decathlon and was a very knowledgeable 400 runner. He was coaching at my school, coaching the girls team when I was coaching the boys, and he took over for me at that meet so that I could go on to the nationals in Raleigh and announce the field events. And honest to goodness, you know, God just flew doors open for me all the way through. I've really never, in these past 26, almost 27 years, I haven't really sought out announcing positions. They have come to me, things like I just said, you know. That also led to getting a chance to go to the Simplot games in Idaho and to announce at the Simplot games. They wanted a field event announcer. But Doug Speck from California, who was like one of the very first ones to do background on kids and do that style of announcing that's more popular now.
Mhm.
Um, he had a conflict and he wasn't going to be able to be there. So they put me into his chair. It was the first time I ever announced running events at the Simplot games that year in 2000, in February of 2000. And what happened though was that was also a year that they had what was called the Golden Spike Tour there. So
Ah.
there were professional and Olympic athletes coming in
Mhm.
for about an hour and a half, 2 hour window of a meet in the middle of this meet for high schoolers with about 2,500 kids, and their announcer didn't make it. Pocatello is not always an easy place to get to. I got Simplot games behind me here. Um, Not always an easy place to get to, and they had some travel issues in the winter. So USA Track and Field called me that night in my room. Now, mind you, I've only been announcing for less than a year because I started announcing in March of '99. This is February of 2000.
Mm.
And James Thornton of USA Track and Field calls me in my room at the hotel that night and says, "Our guy didn't make it in. Can we ask you to do the the announcing for us for the Golden Spike Tour?" And I'm like, "Yeah, are you kidding? Yeah," but I was scared too. Uh, and so I've got Larry Rawson and Dwight Stones and Walt Murphy, who is the king of all stats for TV, sitting next to me. These people that I've seen on TV for
Yeah.
years, and I'm announcing, and I got to announce two world records that year. Gerald Miles Clark ran the 500 yards, which is one of the few world record events that we don't run a whole lot anymore, and
Right.
broke the world record in that. And then Stacy Dragila twice broke the pole vault world record in that meet. And here
Mm.
I am announcing, not even for a year, and I've already got world records under my belt. That kind of experience, and that sort of thing has just led me other places, and to get back to other those were extremely cool moments.
Mhm.
I've gotten to announce other world records since, um, but those really stand out. And Stacy did it again the next year, so I got to they actually hired me ahead of time to do the Golden Spike Tour the next year. Um, and then so I got to do that. But one of the cool things that came of announcing, um, I've done Nike Cross Nationals for 13 years, and being in the Tiger
Mm.
Woods Center and doing the award ceremony and all that stuff was awesome. I had to stop because of my counselor job was conflicting, and they put me in charge of a test that I couldn't be gone at that time. So I haven't been back after doing the first 13 years. But um, that sort of led to another invite to me, which is to the Rock and Roll Marathon series. So I did Rock and Roll marathons and Rock and Roll half marathons, and got some cool experiences. And when I got to do the Rock and Roll USA in Washington, D.C., Jim Ryan's daughter worked at that time for the Rock and Roll series. And Jim Ryan, first high schooler ever under 4 minutes in the mile,
Mhm.
but also a United States congressman from the state of Kansas, he invited us to come over to his house and meet him there. He didn't want to leave until after Kansas was done playing in March Madness. So I got to stand in Jim Ryan's townhouse, Congressman Jim Ryan's townhouse, behind him watching Kansas win in their March Madness game. And then we all went over into the halls of Congress, and he let us sit down and he gave us a tour and taught us all about it. And I'm just sitting there thinking, how in the world has all this
Yeah.
happened? It's just so wonderful. And then later on, I had the idea come to me and was able to organize through various connections. We got Jim Ryan and Alan Webb and Drew Hunter and then Hobbs Kessler
Wow.
together to do a panel discussion on Zoom, kind of like this, and talk about being the mile record holders for high school over the generations. I'd actually coached Hobbs Kessler's dad for one season across country when I filled in at my own alma mater. So I had the in for that one, and other people had connections with the other guys that we got on that panel, and that was incredible for me too,
Yeah.
uh, to be able to have that discussion with them and see the links and the connections between them. Um, that that was something I definitely won't forget.
Man, okay. You definitely might be one of the coolest people I've ever met by far. Dude. Oh, the
Well,
names.
I tell you what, I know I've gotten blessed to meet a lot of people and do a lot of things, but
Yeah.
I get nervous still sometimes too when I'm at these events and like that rock and roll Washington DC, um, rock and roll USA in Washington DC, they had 41,000 runners. So
Mm,
there's 41,000 runners plus the course was lined everywhere. There had to be at least 100,000 people. That's by far the biggest um, audience I've ever announced to. I did end up getting to do TV with the ACC network for 2 years as well. So I'm sitting with Dan O'Brien, world record
nice.
holder, gold medalist, and
Hmm.
Sean Kenny of ESPN, who's just a great guy, um, and doing those. But anytime I'm nervous, and maybe this will be my closing comment to you, and then I'll let you wrap up. But I'm thinking about things, and I tell myself, it's like, David, it's just a track meet.
Yeah,
You've been going to track meet your whole life since you were 12. It's just a track meet. And then I kind of smile to myself and have fun and move on from there. And that's how it goes. So it's just a track meet.
absolutely. That's so cool. Oh, man, listen, you have blessed my heart in so many ways. Because with the names and the moments, and I remember them myself, having seen them or been in the vicinity or proximity of those places. So that is outstanding. I'm excited for the future of what you're planning to do as well, and I'll be listening out and looking for those other things that are happening. I'm amazed that I'm kind of just really blown away. And you really dropped some names. One of my favorite runners of all time is Alan Webb. Um, One of my favorite, definitely Kev's Hop. Oh man, I've watched them. I watched them for years, and of course now, I watch all the athletes that are up and coming. I might be one of the very few people who watches cross country meets on YouTube. Across I think talking
Very
about my
low
wife will
quality,
tell you.
probably, but yeah.
Yeah, no, my wife will tell you. She's like, I don't know anybody who watches full cross country meets except for you. I like literally on YouTube. I'll just watch them because I love to watch the strategy. Anyway, when you love the sport, and you know what? And you said made a comment quickly. It was I don't know, how why these doors opened up, or how these doors opened up, or it's amazing how these doors opened up. It's really because of, in my opinion, when you love something and you have a gift for something, it makes room for you in your life, right? And I think that those things made room for you, and your passion it overflows in the areas of where you are, and I think it impacts people in various ways, right? And just like this, we're having a conversation, and I feel like it just impacted me. It swelled my heart because I have such a love for track and field myself, and the people and the sport and the event. Um, and the outcomes that happen, but it's also what happens with the athletes after they finish, right? Do they become productive citizens? Do they think through what it is that they need to try to get to with their goals, or how do they treat their family and things like that, right? So it's really amazing to me, in my opinion, the impact that you've had on not only track and field, but just the citizens of the world. And whether you know it or not, right? And I'm telling you, I think what you've done is really cool. What you're continuing to do is really cool. I am completely blown away. I love it. I'm amazed by it again, and I know I feel like a a groupie right now. I'm really excited, man. I love hearing
Yeah,
stuff like that, and it's just
awesome.
kind of
Well,
cool.
have me back on. We'll do some more. I got years of things to be able to lean on. So if you ever want, I would love to do something like this with maybe a young coach or two
Yeah.
in the conversation, so that they could lead that conversation with, this is what I'm facing, this is how I'm struggling. What would we do? But there's other stuff. We just should stay in touch. I had a ball. I love doing this with you. So thank you very much
Yeah,
for the
absolutely. We could do
opportunity.
a coaches roundtable and have some real intense discussions about some of these things. And I know the new coaches are really looking for that. So I think that will be incredible. But the wisdom you've shared today, uh, it's priceless. And so again, guys, if you're listening out here and you've got questions, what's the best way to get in contact with you, David?
Client relations at coacho.com is the easiest one. I've also, you could send it to the other one too. I created a word, trackademics, because I was tracking academics when I was a high school counselor and a track coach. So trackademics at
Hmm,
gmail.com is the other one. But either of those, I would welcome to hear from anybody that's heard this or has questions. And I take great joy in being able to help people navigate the challenges that I've already had a chance to navigate some of them, or to do something similar. So somebody's got something going on, I'm up for it. Let me know.
awesome. You heard it here, folks. David's your man. Make sure you reach out to him. Client relations at coacho.com.
Yes, sir.
Right. And trackademics at gmail.com. And of course, you can find them on x.com, or you call it Twitter, if you're our age or older, right? And of course, if you really want to connect with other coaches, other people who love the sport and you're passionate about it, doesn't matter whether you're a fan, a coach, an athlete, a parent, you can always reach us on the school app or platform, skool.com, and find the Track Tribe. And you can find us on YouTube as well, right? We've got all kinds of stuff. The Track Tribe is on YouTube. Look for Track Coach Joan or Coach Kyle Mark Jones. And, feel free to chime in, ask questions, enter the chat, whatever you need, we're there for you. We want to make sure that we're supporting you and the passion that you have and where you're trying to go, the goals that you're attempting to meet. And again, the Track Tribe is completely free. There's a ton of resources in the classroom, ranging from white papers to drills to ideologies to theories and all kind of technical aspects as well. And then you got a lot of ton of coaches from high school to middle school to college and even some pro level coaches in there too. So there isn't a shortage of information. I can tell you that much, but we want to cut through the noise and get to the real root of what works, get back to principles within the sport so we can just cut out all the noise and help our athletes, help our parents, help our coaches to get results that they're looking for. Mr. David Mitchell, I cannot say enough of how gracious and grateful I am to have one have met you, but also thank you for joining us on this particular live session. You have done so much for the sport, and I'm looking forward to the next conversation. Any final words before we depart, sir?
No, sounds good. Keep loving track. Remind yourself it's just a track meet. You can do this. Your happiness. This is a good quote to end with. Happiness is not the absence of problems, but the ability to deal with them. So, coaches, you're never going to have an absence of problems. So don't count on that to make you happy. Just develop the skills to be able to deal with them, and you're good. Here we go.
Awesome. I love it. And don't forget, guys, make sure you reach out to us if you have a question. Happiness, y'all. Happiness. You got to choose it. It doesn't come easy, but you still have to choose it no matter the circumstances. Thank y'all. It's been a wonderful time. Track Tribe, we are out of here. Another live session done. And Mr. David Mitchell, we want to thank you so much for everything that you've done for the sport continuously and continue to do. We'll see you later, sir.
Thank you, Coach. Have a good
Thank
night.
you. You too.